All right, hello everyone. So welcome to the Neurodiversity Awareness Day 2024 through Columbia University. We're now going to begin. There's a QR code in the left upper corner that can take you to the schedule for today. And we will be starting shortly. So we want to first thank Neurodivergent at Columbia and the Students with Disabilities Affinity Group at Teachers College, Columbia University for putting this event together. Next, we'd like to thank our sponsors, which include the Graduate Student Life and Development Office at Teachers College, Columbia University, the Office of the Vice President for Diversity and Community Affairs at Teachers College, Columbia University, the Department of Health Studies and Applied Educational Psychology and Intellectual Disabilities Autism Program at Teachers College, and the Society of Fellows and Heyman Center for the Humanities at Columbia University. We'd also like to thank Autism and Neurodivergency Advocacy Association. So thank you to our sponsors. All right, and now we're going to briefly go over our student organizers for this event. So you can see us here. I know the camera is a little odd. It's very close on Aura. We're trying to get that fixed, but yeah. So Aura is an autistic self-advocate and senior at Columbia University, majoring in biophysics, and an incoming master's student at the Department of Biomedical Engineering. And she's also a social impact fellow with Columbia World Projects. Aura is a recent recipient of the Stony Brook Leadership Education in Neurodevelopmental and Related Disabilities Long-Term Trainee Fellowship, where she researches the global challenges in the transition of care from pediatric to adult medicine. As an aspiring physician scientist, Aura seeks to study antimicrobial resistant infections in long-term care facilities and address the unique challenges faced by individuals with disabilities. So, yay, Aura. Okay, and then we have myself. Aura is going to read my bio.
Hopefully my friend Juliette is an autistic and ADHD self-advocate, currently pursuing her PhD in intellectual disability and autism at Teachers College, Columbia University. And currently Juliette is an intern at the U.S. Department of Education and a PhD student researching autism, stigma, and language use surrounding neurodiversity. She has held a variety of roles and internships surrounding neurodiversity, including being the CEO of her own nonprofit, which as a sponsor, the Autism and Neurodiversity Advocacy Association. Juliette is a public humanities fellow at the SOS Hyman Center for Humanities at Columbia University and a member at UNESCO SDG 4 Youth and Student Network. It's a pleasure meeting you.
Thank you. Okay. So if anyone has questions today, we're not going to be using the Q&A on Zoom because we also have participants in person. So we're going to be using this Google form for people to ask questions. Do you think you could move over there because the camera's picking up? Sorry about that. Okay, so yes, scan this QR code if you'd like to ask questions throughout the day, or you can just use tinyurl.com/ndcu questions. Okay. All right, so this is the schedule for today. So we're going to do a welcome and introduction to neurodiversity by myself, and then we're going to have all of these lovely sessions. You can see the schedule on our website. Or we'll be periodically showing the schedule on the screen for you to know what's next. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about an introduction to neurodiversity. So what is neurodiversity? Many of you may have heard this term before, or many of you may have not. The fact that you're at an event on neurodiversity probably means you've heard this term before. But I'm just going to go over a brief introduction of what the movement is. So neurodiversity, it's a word used to explain the unique ways that people's brains work. And really, it's the notion that no two brains function just the same. So brains are diverse. And neurodiversity refers to everyone. All people have neurodiversity, but being neurodivergent means you have a brain that diverges from the normal, which is, societally based. And then neurotypical means that you have a brain that most of the population has. And so this is a umbrella created by the Lived Experienced Educator on Instagram. She's a great self-advocate. I encourage you to follow them. And so this is just a few of the conditions that could fall under the neurodivergent umbrella. So things like ADHD, OCD, autism, epilepsy, traumatic brain injury, psychosis. It's not just autism and ADHD, it's also a host of other conditions. And this is a non-exhaustive list. So what is the scope of neurodivergence? Around 3% of children in the United States are estimated to be autistic. And I'm mostly focusing on autism in my talk today because I am autistic myself. But as far as the whole neurodivergent population, there are some estimates that around 15 to 20% of the global population is neurodivergent. So society's view of neurodivergence, this usually looks like these characters that are on the screen here. So it's the Good Doctor, Big Bang Theory, Atypical. Usually it's white men who appear awkward, what I would say autistic coded, so something like you would assume they could be autistic and usually not any other type of neurodivergence. And then they're usually good at things like memorizing facts or stuff like that. And that's kind of what society's view as a whole may look like for neurodivergence. And then I wanted to show a slide. I know for the in-person participants, the captions are a little bit in the way, so I will try to let you know what is there. But I basically, since AI is on the rise, I wanted to show a photo of what AI thinks autism looks like. So I asked it a person with autism. I asked Dolly, the image generator, and it gave me this photo of a white boy wearing a white t-shirt with puzzle pieces blurred in the background, and it appears he's eating puzzle pieces. I'm not really sure what this is, but essentially it just shows the view of autism that AI has is closely related to the view of autism that society has, and that would be, puzzle pieces. The history of the puzzle piece is not the best. In the autistic community, we don't really like the puzzle piece as a whole. There are some autistic people that like the puzzle piece, but most do not. And so it's really the history that autism was a puzzling condition, and then it was usually a blue puzzle piece because it was primarily in boys. Or that's what they thought, and it has a lot of negative stereotypes. So the autistic community has really leaned towards the infinity sign in red or gold for autism, and then the infinity sign in rainbow is for all of neurodivergence. And then this is what neurodivergence actually looks like, a non-exhaustive inventory. So we have things like Albert Einstein, Simone Biles, Ryan Gosling, and these people on the screen here, they have things like gender diversity, racial, ethnic, and religious diversity, what I call social diversity. So that's something like they're not like that awkward, not all that awkward stereotype that people think that neurodiversity is. And then they have neurodiversity. So they're not just autistic, they have other conditions. And they also have a wide range of careers and interests. So, I just want to keep time. Okay, so I'm going to quickly go over the difference between a model and a paradigm. So they're very similar, and it can be confusing. So a model is something that simplifies a complicated notion or idea, and a paradigm is a framework for understanding and interpreting the world. So the models I'm going to be going over today is the social model and medical model. And the paradigms I'm going to be going over is the neurodiversity paradigm and the pathology paradigm. So the medical model, this is what you would think of most of the world and doctors and the medical community think of when they think of disability, that it's sort of rooted within the individual. And this is a quote from the United Nations at an event that was actually for disability awareness. And they said in 1993 that disability is any restriction or lack of ability to perform an activity in the manner or within the range considered normal for a human being. So very stigmatizing and kind of putting down the person that has the disability. And so that's kind of what the medical model is like. So then we have the pathology paradigm, which is pretty much the medical model in paradigm form. So the pathology paradigm is based on two assumptions: that there exists a singular configuration for human brains, sometimes referred to as normal or healthy, and that if your neurological architecture deviates significantly from this normal or healthy, it indicates that something is wrong with you. So I put the puzzle pieces up in the corner there because it kind of just like radiates that. So what is wrong with the pathology paradigm, aka the medical model? So this approach looks for impairments or deficits in neurodivergent individuals, and it frequently has the unintended effect of diverting away from the unique strengths of neurodivergent individuals. In other words, it focuses on what neurodivergent people can't do while emphasizing, or can do while emphasizing what they cannot do. And so rarely do these medicalized depictions of neurodivergence account for the firsthand experiences of neurodivergent people. And then we have the social model. So the social model really looks at, instead of looking for pathology within the individual, it says that society is really to blame for disability solely. And so an example of this would be a physically disabled person who cannot enter a space because there's no wheelchair ramps is disabled by inaccessible design and not by their body. So in reality, a lot of neurodivergent people don't identify with the social model completely. In a perfect world, we would hope that, society would just improve and that the social model would work, but there are a lot more factors and it's not that easy. So we have the neurodiversity paradigm. So the neurodiversity paradigm has the following assumptions: that neurodiversity represents a beneficial and significant aspect of human variation, and that there is no universally accepted or correct style of human brain, just as there is no universally correct ethnicity, gender, or culture. And so additionally, the social dynamics around neurodiversity are analogous to those surrounding other forms of diversity, such as race, gender, or culture, and that these dynamics encompass social power relations, such as inequality, privilege, and oppression. And I don't think I mentioned this, but neurodiversity stands for neurological diversity. And so, like I hinted at before, even if the societal inclusion of neurodivergent people were significantly enhanced, many neurodivergent people still don't identify with the social model because they think they would still encounter barriers and want individualized support and interventions. And the neurodiversity paradigm really acts as a bridge between the social and medical model. So I have this, this illustration here showing that it's sort of like bridging the gap between the medical model and social model. And so comparing ideologies, this is just a brief example. In the medical model, schools might provide individualized accommodations or support services. And this is looking really at addressing the individual's impairment to facilitate their education. And in the social model, schools are focused on creating inclusive learning environments that accommodate all the needs of diverse students. And the emphasis here is removing systemic barriers, and it would use things like universal design for learning. And now, I know the caption thing is in the way for people in person, but the neurodiversity paradigm would say that schools should provide accommodations for the individual and use things like universal design for learning. So that's just an example of what the neurodiversity paradigm would say in that situation. So then we have the theory of mind hypothesis. So this was created in a while back, but it was introduced into the autism world in the 1990s. And it really was focusing on saying that autistic people can't understand the perspectives of other people or what they're thinking, including other autistic people, and that it kind of hints that they don't have empathy for how others are feeling. And so this kind of shines the light on the autistic person in social situations, and it doesn't really have any accountability for the non-autistic person in this situation. So we don't like this, obviously. So we have the double empathy problem instead. This was created by a autistic researcher in the UK in 2012, Dr. Milton. And this really shines the light on both parties, the autistic person and the non-autistic person. And this can be replaced with other types of neurodivergencies as you see fit. But it really shows that both parties struggle to understand each other's thoughts, struggles, behaviors, or differences, where the autistic person might struggle to manage their sensory overload and distractions, overcome other people's misconceptions, or read between the lines. And the non-autistic person might struggle to form positive impressions about the autistic person, recognize and understand autism, and imagine the sensory difficulties that may cause differences. So a note on inclusive language. These are just some terms that are commonly said, and I just wanted to highlight that a lot of them are not preferred in the disability community as a whole. Yeah, so we have things like special needs or differently abled or words of that sort. You can just say disability, it's okay. Describe their needs, you don't need to say they're special, you know, everyone has different needs. And things like high or low functioning, you can just say high or low support needs, describe their needs. This really creates a divide in the community to use terms like this. And then we have person first versus identity first language, which is a huge debate in the autism community. And I'll show on another slide after this, but autistic person is usually preferred by autistic people over person with autism. And then in the disability community as a whole, it's mixed based on studies. And really you can, I suppose, use person with disability or disabled person. Community is torn on this one. And so what do autistic adults want? So a study by Tibeos et al. Found the majority of US autistic adults prefer identity first language at 87%. And so I just want to note here that just because you prefer one type of language over the other doesn't mean that you're like a bad person or you don't care about autistic people. It's just a matter of, you know, preference, especially for autistic people themselves. But yeah, I just wanted to say that. And then what does the rest of the disability community want? Like I said before, it's pretty mixed. So identity first, 49%, person first, 33%, and no preference at 18%. And then what do researchers use? So we had a recent study that we looked at the use of PFL and IFL in research studies and what researchers were using to talk about their autistic participants. And we overall found mixed use with identity first language on the rise in recent years. And so this is a very long slide of just things from that study. But I think one important thing to highlight is, as you can see in this article, journal Autism, the identity first language is surpassing in 2022 the person first language. And then I just wanted to highlight that autistic community self-advocacy really impacts research involving autistic individuals and the language we use to refer to autistic individuals. So another term we shouldn't use is Asperger's syndrome. I don't want to be dark, but Hans Asperger has ties to the Nazi regime. You know, he protected children he deemed intelligent and sent children to be euthanized at that time. So it's really not a good term to use. It's also not in the DSM anymore. And there's a host of other reasons why we shouldn't be using terms like this. And then other terms, I briefly touched on this, the high or low functioning. Another term for this is profound autism. So this is not in the DSM, it's harmful. It really lessens supports for people we would deem high functioning. and also could be offensive to those deemed low functioning. People don't want to be called low functioning. And it promotes a divide in the autism community that's just not necessary. And autism is a spectrum, so it's not linear. It's really, I like to describe it as like a DJ board where you have like 100 different autistic traits, and then you have varying like levels like you would on a DJ board for each person. So everyone varies, every autistic person varies. And yeah, I just wanted to highlight that. And then a note on the infinity symbol. So autism was historically seen as a puzzling condition where if you could just put the puzzle pieces together, you know, you get the idea. So we kind of are leaning away from the puzzle piece now, and we're leaning more towards the infinity symbol. So gold or red for autism, and rainbow for all of neurodiversity. And the idea is that it represents an infinite range of neurodiversities. And so here's just some questions to think about when you're referring to people who are neurodivergent. I'm just going to read off one or two, but you can take time to read them if you like later. So one of them is, would I use this language if I were in conversation with an autistic person? Am I using particular words or phrases solely because it is a tradition in my field, even though autistic people have expressed that such language can be stigmatizing? And it goes on. So this article is really great by Batima Batel et al. In 2021. It's a really great article. I suggest looking into it. And I think you can replace this with other types of neurodivergence as well. And then I have some actionable steps for educators, clinicians, and allies of all sorts. So as far as educators, I'm just going to read off the first one, and then you can continue to read if you would like. So for educators, things like integrating lessons and discussions about neurodiversity into your curriculum, and making sure to emphasize the strengths and challenges of different neurological profiles. For clinicians, providing patient-centered care that really respects and validates those experiences of neurodivergent individuals, and just recognizing that neurodiversity is a natural variation in the human population. And then for allies, one thing you could do is use your platform to raise awareness about neurodiversity and amplify neurodivergent voices. So I just want to end on this quote here. I know I talked a lot about autism, but I am autistic myself, so that's kind of why I did that. But I think you can replace these ideals really with other types of neurodivergence too. But I really like this quote from Jim Sinclair in 1993. He's an autistic self-advocate. They said, autism isn't something a person has or a shell that a person is trapped inside. There's no normal child hidden behind the autism. Autism is a way of being. It is pervasive. It colors every experience, every sensation, perception, thought, emotion, and encounter, every aspect of existence. It is not possible to separate the autism from the person, and if it were possible, the person you'd have left would not be the same person you started with. And then they go on to say, you didn't lose a child to autism. You lost a child because the child you waited for never came into existence. Grieve if you must for your own lost dreams, but don't mourn for us. We are alive, we are real, and we're here waiting for you. So, thank you. There's my contact information. If you'd like to email me, I'd always love to talk about neurodiversity. And then that's my nonprofit's website. And then if you have any questions, please use this QR code or go to tinyurl.com/ndcu questions, including the people in person. And then we're going to be answering, let me see what time it is. I have 5 minutes to answer maybe a question or two. So please put them on this Google form and I will look at them. Okay, so not seeing any questions yet, but
We want to make sure that it's recorded.
yeah, it is recorded.
Yes.
Yeah, someone did ask that. Yes, this is being recorded. So, and it'll be up on the our YouTube channel and our website. Yeah. So, yeah, I think.
the slide decks for the presenters be available to the participants?
So we can ask the presenters if they can offer the slide decks, but my slides will be available for sure. Thank you so much for everyone for coming today, by the way. This is going to be a great day. Ara and I have been planning this for so long, and we're just so excited to see it come together. So, yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone. And we have quite a few people on Zoom, so thank you on Zoom as well. I know the camera is a little odd. It's an owl, so, yeah, but...
I got a comment about that, the time to state it.
I mean, we would prefer if you put questions or comments in the Google form just to make it fair to people online as well. Unless it's like really brief, is it?
I guess it's moderate, it has to do with research by Damien Milton.
Okay. Okay. Maybe if you could put it on the thing and then we can read it off, just so we...
Because they wouldn't hear on Zoom as well.
Yeah, so I don't know if they can hear you on Zoom is the problem.
All right. Yeah, I don't know if I'll get it all in time.
Oh, okay.
We'll talk about it.
Okay, yeah, for sure. All right, so I think we're going to, I'll check one more time to see if there's any questions. Okay, so now we're gonna go to our 15-minute break, and then next we will hear from Daniel Schreier about neurodiversity, disability, law, and policy. So, all right, we'll be right back. Thank you, everyone.